Let the maid unpack the stuff. We're gonna grab some lunch to celebrate the move, so make sure it's all done by the time we get back. Be extra careful with my things. I can't believe I get to live in a place with 3 meals a day, naps, and a live-in maid. It's the best. The two of them left, laughing hysterically, leaving me stunned. To them, I was clearly still just a maid. I had endured it until now, but I had reached my limit. Taking advantage of the fact that I wouldn't talk back, their attitudes were only going to escalate from here on out. Am I supposed to live the rest of my life being looked down on and ridiculed like this? I absolutely hate that idea. If I was going to punish them, now was the time. To break free from this life, I needed to muster up my courage now. Excuse me, there seems to have been a bit of a misunderstanding. Actually, I decided to use a certain trump card I had been keeping hidden. My name is Emily. I live with my husband John. We both work. I'm at a major advertising agency and John is in sales at a small construction company. John and I have been married for 5 years, but from when we first started dating up until we were newlyweds, he was always considerate and kind to me. When I got home from work, he would offer words of comfort, and on weekends we would always go out to eat together. He cherished the time he spent with me. However, a few years into our marriage, John's attitude gradually began to change. John stopped helping with any of the housework and his attitude towards me grew cold. Hey, is dinner ready yet? Hurry it up. You really are a clueless woman. What a slob. When I would come home tired after working overtime, as soon as John saw my face he would start demanding dinner. John had already come home, taken a shower, and was relaxing on the living room sofa playing on his phone, but I had to start preparing dinner immediately after getting home. We both worked, but no matter how much overtime I did, no matter how tired I was from work, all the housework was my responsibility. I work too, you know? Why do I have to be the only one doing the housework? If you get home earlier, you could at least try to be a little more considerate. Housework is your job, isn't it? Why the hell should I have to do it? John retorted with a sullen expression. We always ended up arguing like this, but no matter how much I pleaded, John wouldn't budge on his stance that housework was a woman's job. I suggested splitting the chores since we both work, but my proposal was always rejected. Sure, John was probably tired from work every day too, but so was I. We're married, so whoever can do it should just do it. Let's help each other out a bit more. Shut up. You're my wife, don't lecture me. Just 'cause you work a little, you're getting too big for your britches. You just need to shut up and do as I say. I'm not your maid. If you got a problem with it, then get out. Though I doubt any man would take a mouthy woman like you. Now that you get it, hurry up and make dinner. I'm starving here. Saying that, John flopped back down on the sofa and started playing a game on his phone. Why is it only me? Letting out a small sigh, I mustered my tired and sluggish body to start preparing dinner. If we're married, I think we should help each other out day by day, but John insists that as the man, it's only natural for his wife to obey him. I couldn't tell when we were dating, but John's values were quite old-fashioned. In dual-income households, most families probably split the housework, but John wouldn't budge on his insistence that even if both spouses work, housework is still a woman's job. No matter how busy I was with work, as a woman I was supposed to obey him and do the housework perfectly. Even as I thought about how I was being treated like a maid, I remembered how kind John used to be. Believing that someday he would go back to how he was, I endured my husband's treatment. Amidst all this, we got a call that John's father, my father-in-law, had fallen ill and been hospitalized. When he underwent a detailed examination at the hospital, advanced cancer was discovered. My father-in-law was forced to be hospitalized and focus on treatment. Emily, I'm always putting you out like this. You're busy too, and I'm causing you trouble. Not at all. This is the least I can do. After he was hospitalized, visiting my father-in-law's hospital room in between work became part of my daily routine. It was to bring back laundry and drop off daily necessities, but more than that, I was worried about my father-in-law's condition. I had built a good relationship with my father-in-law since I first married John. So when I was suddenly told he had cancer, I was so shocked I couldn't stand it. However, I couldn't show a gloomy face in front of my father-in-law, so I tried to act as cheerful as possible. I wish there was some way I could thank you for all you're doing. I'm coming here because I'm worried about you. Please don't concern yourself with that. Like this, my father-in-law always offered me words of appreciation and comfort. But on the other hand, my mother-in-law was terrible. Even though her husband was hospitalized, she kept saying she was busy every day and never once visited the hospital. In spite of that, since she was bored being at home alone, she frequently imposed herself on us at our house. I had some errands nearby, so I thought I'd drop by. Hey, I'm a bit hungry. Give me something to eat, will you? Even though it was a precious day off, my mother-in-law came to visit in the middle of the day without any notice. Could you please consider visiting your husband in the hospital, even just for a little bit? He hasn't been doing well lately. Huh? You think you can order me around just because you're the daughter-in-law? You've sure gotten full of yourself. That's not my intention. But it seems his condition is getting worse by the day. We don't know when he could take a sudden turn for the worse. Despite the treatment, my father-in-law's symptoms weren't improving much. My mother-in-law and John hardly ever visited his hospital room, but right now father could have an emergency at any time. I'm busy with my own things. I'll go when I feel like it, without you telling me. You're making me feel sick. Perhaps angered by my words, my mother-in-law started raging. She says she plans to go, but she probably won't actually visit my father-in-law in the hospital. My mother-in-law has quite a lazy personality, with the bad habit of pawning off anything bothersome onto others. They've been married for many years, so you'd think she'd be worried that her husband is sick, but even with my father-in-law hospitalized, my mother-in-law wouldn't stop acting selfishly. In spite of that, she orders people around and works them to the bone, so to be honest, I really hate my mother-in-law. However, I can't just ignore John's mother, so I have no choice but to go along with her demands. My mother-in-law loves shopping, has a terrible spending habit, and dresses quite flashily for her age. And she's terrible at housework. Whenever I go to my in-laws' house, there are always things scattered about to the point you can't even walk. Apparently, it's always been like this, and even though my father-in-law would help tidy up, my mother-in-law's aversion to housework never got better, so he eventually gave up. John probably insists so stubbornly that housework is a woman's job because he grew up seeing his mother like that. And ever since my father-in-law was hospitalized, on top of my husband, my mother-in-law who practically moved in with us started treating me like a maid day after day. In addition to work and daily housework, I also had to follow my mother-in-law's orders, and I gradually became exhausted. Even though he saw what state I was in, John didn't change at all. I'm tired from work. Using work as an excuse to try to get out of anything bothersome. But I work too. Why am I the only one who has to put up with this? As I silently seethed with anger, my mother-in-law piled on insult to injury by saying, "Show more respect to my son. You work so you're trying to slack off on housework and make John do it, aren't you? Stop being lazy and know your place." My mother-in-law is selfish, but she clearly dotes on her only son, as she constantly gives me unwanted advice about putting my husband first. Mom's right. This is a good chance, so train her properly for me. I'm at my wit's end with her always talking back. Far from defending me when I was being scolded, John said things to sick my mother-in-law on me. After that, my mother-in-law happily started frequently making nitpicky sarcastic remarks and complaints to me, driving me to the brink of a nervous breakdown. And then, something happened that was the final straw to my already depressing life. I'm going on a little overseas trip. There's a show for my favorite brand. I'll be away for a while. One day, when I was at my wit's end with her daily visits, my mother-in-law suddenly announced she was going on a trip, and a moment of peace arrived. She said she'd be back in about a week, so until then I could get a bit of a mental break. Or so I thought, but one night when I got home from work, I witnessed an unbelievable scene with John. John was lying sloppily on the living room sofa, snoring loudly. When I got closer, there was a strong smell of alcohol. Apparently, he had gone out for a drink after work. He works me to the bone, and looking at him must be nice. Feeling angry at my selfish husband, I picked up John's suit and bag that were strewn about the living room. That's when I noticed something. "What's this?" As I picked up the crumpled dress shirt to wash it, I smelled a strong perfume. It was clearly a woman's scent, and of course completely different from what I use. Smelling that sickly sweet perfume made me feel nauseous. In addition to the smell, there was also lipstick on the shirt, making it obvious that John had done something with another woman. However, even if I confronted John, my condescending husband probably wouldn't immediately admit to cheating. If anything, he'd get angry and call me the worst for doubting him. My love for John had already been fading due to his attitude that it's only natural for me to do everything, but today made it final. I've been working so hard for my family. I'm at my limit. I left the living room and headed to the washroom to wipe the tears welling up. Looking in the mirror, I saw my face that had become much more haggard than before. It was probably because I had lost 11 pounds from the stress. The dark circles under my eyes and the white hairs mixed in with my hair made me look older than I was. If I stay quiet, I'll just remain a convenient maid. Fighting against John and that mother-in-law of his would probably be really tough. But I couldn't stand continuing to live like this, being used however they wanted. At that moment, I vowed in my heart to get revenge on John and my mother-in-law. After that, my days of being worked to the bone continued as always, but in order to crush John and my mother-in-law completely, I bided my time and waited for a chance at revenge. Amidst all this, my father-in-law who had been fighting illness finally passed away. In the end, the cancer had metastasized throughout his body, and the doctor had told us there was no hope of recovery, so I was prepared, but it was still painful. However, because John and my mother-in-law said they didn't really get it and dumped everything on me, I didn't even have the luxury of grieving and had to prepare for my father-in-law's funeral. And after finishing all the arrangements from the wake to the burial, just as I was finally catching my breath, my mother-in-law suddenly visited as usual and said something unbelievable. "Now that my husband is gone too, I'll be living here with you starting today. Thanks in advance." I saw a large suitcase next to my mother-in-law, making it clear this was no joke. "Living together, so suddenly. I haven't heard anything about this." I said it was fine. "You got a problem with that?" John said brazenly, not looking the least bit guilty. I got so angry, I felt dizzy. How can this man be so selfish? "Of course I have a problem with it. Why didn't you discuss such an important thing with me?" John had decided unilaterally for my mother-in-law to live with us, without asking my opinion at all. I couldn't just not object to this. "Why should I need your approval? Anyway, it's already been decided that she's living with us." "How could you just decide something like that? If Mom's here, she can help with the housework you've been slacking on. Isn't that great?" John said that with a stupid grin, but I knew there was no way this mother-in-law of mine would actually do any housework. "Oh, isn't it about time for the movers to get here? Hurry up and bring in my stuff. I won't forgive you if you damage anything." Saying that, my mother-in-law shoved her large suitcase at me. "Let the maid unpack the stuff. We're gonna grab some lunch to celebrate the move, so make sure it's all done by the time we get back, got it?" John said that in a rough, condescending tone. "Be extra careful with my things, you slob. Come on, John, let's go. I can't believe I get to live in a place with 3 meals a day, naps, and a live-in maid. It's the best." The two of them left in high spirits, laughing hysterically and leaving me stunned. To them, I was clearly still just a maid. I had endured it until now, but I had reached my limit. Taking advantage of the fact that I wouldn't talk back, the two of them were only going to escalate things from here on out. Am I supposed to live the rest of my life being looked down on and ridiculed like this? I absolutely hate that idea. I knew that if we started living together, I would end up being used by these two even more than before. To break free from this life, I needed to muster up my courage now. Fortunately, I had a certain trump card in hand to send John to rock bottom. If I was going to punish them, I thought now was the time. Hello. We're here to deliver your moving boxes. Anyone home? After a while, the moving truck arrived. Peeking into the cargo area, I saw box after box piled up with my mother-in-law's things. Seeing that, I got an idea. Excuse me. There seems to have been a bit of a misunderstanding. Actually, I made a certain request to the driver and got everything ready for John and my mother-in-law's unpacking. The two of them would surely be furious when they got back. Secretly gloating that I could finally have my revenge, I was left home alone. A few hours later, the two of them came back and saw me relaxing in the living room, not unpacking at all, and their expressions turned angry. Oh, welcome back. What are you doing lounging around without unpacking? Huh? I finished taking care of all the stuff though? Don't lie. There's no way you could put away that much stuff so quickly. Hey, wait a minute. My stuff isn't in the house anywhere. What's going on? Where are my things? My mother-in-law noticed that her things were nowhere to be found inside the house and let out a hysterical scream. I told you, I put away the stuff properly. At your mistress's house, that is. What? What are you saying? Playing dumb is pointless. I hired a private investigator to look into it. You're cheating, aren't you? When I realized John was cheating, I had secretly asked a detective to investigate him. The investigation revealed that on days John came home late saying he was busy with work and had to do overtime, he was always meeting up with his mistress. I don't know what you're talking about. And don't change the subject. I'm asking where you put Mom's stuff. I already told you, I sent it all to your mistress's place. I asked the moving truck driver. I told him the address was wrong and to deliver it there. The detective had uncovered everything about the mistress. I had information on her age, the family she lived with, and her address. So I sent my mother-in-law's things to that mistress's house. Why would you do that? John's face turned pale with agitation. Just confronting you about the cheating wouldn't be any fun. Do you have any idea how much you've looked down on me until now? And my punishment isn't just about the stuff. Seeing John get nervous about what else there could be, I thrust something at him. It was photographic evidence of his cheating that I had gotten from the detective in advance. It showed John walking arm in arm with an unknown woman, looking intimate. How about that? Irrefutable proof of cheating. Secretly taking photos is cowardly. Which is more cowardly? Dumping everything on me and then cheating is the height of betrayal. This is ridiculous. Why are you sulking? You're lacking in charm as a woman, that's why you're consumed by these delusions. There's no cheating. Deny it all you want, but I wonder what conclusion your company will come to. Huh? You told the company? Why would you do that? I had also sent the photos of the cheating scene that I got from the detective to John's company. That's right. Because your company isn't unrelated to this either. John's mistress was an unbelievable person. The mistress is the CEO's wife, right? I added a note saying that office affairs seem to be rampant at your company. I can't believe you went after the CEO's wife. If it gets out, you'll definitely be fired. Presented with irrefutable evidence, John was at a loss for words. It's your fault. It's no wonder John cheated on you. He got sick of you not knowing your place as a wife. My mother-in-law shouted, trying to defend John. Well then, why don't you go make that claim at the mistress's house? I'm sure the CEO will listen to you. He'll be furious though. When I said that, my mother-in-law hung her head and fell silent. What have you done? You reap what you sow, don't you? Going after the CEO's wife. If it gets out, of course there will be consequences. John's face turned pale at my words. Don't be ridiculous. Get my precious things back. I have brand name items I've bought over the years. My mother-in-law, for her part, turned bright red with anger upon hearing her things had been sent to a total stranger's place. She yelled at me to go to the mistress's house right now and get her stuff back, but of course I had no intention of doing that. No thanks. If it's that important, why don't you go get it yourself instead of leaving it to a slob like me? Go visit and say you're the mistress's mother-in-law. What kind of woman are you? Perhaps the shock was too much, as my mother-in-law crumpled to the floor. She's always so aggressive in blaming me, but I guess she's weak when the tables are turned on her. Before long, my mother-in-law started crying. Then suddenly, John's phone rang. The screen displayed the CEO's name. He had no choice but to answer, so John picked up the phone nervously. I'm sure you already know why I'm calling. Your behavior is unacceptable. You're fired, effective immediately. No way! This is all a misunderstanding. Please hear me out. John hurriedly tried to make excuses to the CEO, but it seems the call ended as soon as he was told he was fired. Shocked at losing his job, John was at a loss for words for a while, but eventually he started glaring at me and cursing. I'll never forgive you for this. I'm divorcing you. Get out of the house. The ones who need to leave are you too. What are you talking about? This is John's house. What are you saying? I'm the one paying the mortgage on this place, you know? No way. That can't be true. Why would you be? She probably never doubted this condo was in her son's name. My mother-in-law's eyes widened in surprise. When John and I first got married, we had agreed that I would pay the mortgage since I had the higher income, but it seems my mother-in-law didn't know that. Sorry to disappoint you, but I make more than your son. Recently, I hadn't been able to fully devote myself to work because John wasn't doing anything around the house, but even so, my salary was still higher than John's. I have no intention of living here anymore, so I'm going to pay off the mortgage early and sell the place. Or are you going to buy it from me? Oh, I guess that's impossible for you unemployed folks. Hearing my words, my mother-in-law's face contorted in bitterness. Forget it. I'm going back to my own house. I wouldn't stay in this place if you begged me. Oh, that's not possible. Demolition work has already started there. What? Demolition? What do you mean? My mother-in-law let out a discordant scream in shock. I put in a request for demolition when you moved in with us after the funeral. It should be an empty lot by now. Too bad, huh? My mother-in-law started trembling with anger. What right do you have to demolish it? I'm calling the police. Feel free. But I think you'll just embarrass yourself. The house has been officially transferred from your husband's name to mine through the proper procedures. What? Why would it be in your name instead of mine, his wife? When he was alive, my father-in-law had said he wanted to do something for me, the only devoted family member who visited him amidst all his unreliable relatives. I had always refused, saying I didn't need anything in return, but in the will found after my father-in-law passed away, it was written that the rights to the land the house was on would be inherited by me. Of course my mother-in-law wouldn't know about that. She had dumped all the bothersome tasks like my father-in-law's funeral and the procedures afterward on me while she went off and played. I can't believe this. Why would he leave it to his daughter-in-law? I wasn't looking after your husband hoping to get something out of it. But I'm sure your husband didn't want to leave anything to you two who hardly ever visited despite being family. No. Then where am I supposed to go now? At this rate I'll be homeless. I suppose so. But it's all a result of your own actions. Go wherever you want. Wait, what I said earlier was just getting carried away. You're not really telling us to leave, right? Right? What are you saying at this point? I'm serious. Now hurry up and pack your things and get out. Oh, good thing I don't have to go to the trouble of packing for you. You two can go get your stuff from the CEO's house together. When I said that, both John and my mother-in-law slumped in defeat. With the photos as irrefutable proof, it seems the mistress ended up getting divorced. And I thrust divorce papers at John too, pressing him to fill them out. But John clung to me tearfully, begging me to reconsider and give him another chance. I was wrong. I'll change my ways from now on. So please reconsider the divorce. Losing everything like this made me realize you're the only one for me, Emily. He may be acting meek now, but now that he's jobless and homeless, he's probably only pretending to reflect because it would be a problem for him if I divorced him. I had absolutely no intention of choosing to continue being married to John as if nothing had happened. No way. I bet you're not reflecting from the bottom of your heart anyway. From now on, you'll be living with your mother. I never want to be involved with you two again. Even when I refused to reconcile like that, John whined about not wanting to for a while, but when I said I would increase the compensation for his cheating if he didn't agree to the divorce, he reluctantly stamped the papers. After that, having nowhere to live, the two of them had no choice but to move into a cramped, cheap house. Fired from his company and jobless, John started job hunting, but apparently he's having a hard time finding a place that will hire him. And no wonder the CEO, his mistress's husband, had pressured the industry and put out a notice not to hire John. To earn money for living expenses, John is apparently doing temp physical labor jobs for the time being. However, having never done work outside the home before, John isn't very good at it, and it seems his coworkers berate him as useless. Due to financial difficulties, my mother-in-law has had to sell off her brand name items, and the shock has made her senile. Recently, she started wandering at night too, so it seems John is having a really hard time. As for me, I sold the house and rented a new place near my company. In my new home, I got a fresh start on a new life. Being betrayed by John left emotional scars, so I decided I was completely done with dating and marriage for a while and threw myself into my work that I had been holding back on for housework. Recently, my performance at the company has been getting recognized, and there's even talk of a promotion. Glancing in the mirror, there's no trace of my haggard face from when I was living with John. Instead, I saw my own face full of motivation. If I had stayed as John and my mother-in-law's maid, I probably wouldn't have the life I have now. Feeling grateful to my late father-in-law who gave me this chance and opportunity, I devoted myself to work again today. Several months have passed since divorcing John. My hard work was acknowledged and I was promoted to a new position. My salary went up from before too, and I'm enjoying a comfortable single life. I had thought I was done with romance for a while, but recently I started dating a man I met through a friend's introduction. Unlike my ex-husband John, he can naturally handle all the housework, including cooking. Any self-respecting adult should be able to do basic housework. He says, "Meeting such an independent man, I'm truly glad, as he doesn't even compare to John. We're living together now, but I intend to marry him eventually. I failed at marriage once, but thanks to that I was lucky enough to find a wonderful partner. From now on, I want to walk through a happy life together with him." Hey! I'm going out with my friends, so give me some money. About $4,000 should be good. No way, that's too much money. What? So you married my dad, a doctor, just for the money after all? That's why you're so greedy about money. You're really a nasty woman. Due to an illness, I can't live a normal life without a ventilator and need a wheelchair to go anywhere. Despite my condition, my husband, who was willing to marry me, had a problem child from a previous relationship. His son, now a college student, planned a trip with his friends and asked me for money. However, with the monthly expenses for the ventilator rental and other costs, I couldn't afford to give him that much. That's impossible. Ugh. You're really annoying. Always acting like a mom, and if you're not useful, you might as well leave. Just disappear. After insulting me, he unbelievably unplugged my ventilator and stole the money from the dresser, leaving the house. I was left struggling to breathe. I'm Sally, 42 years old. Now, I'm happily married with a husband and a 15-year-old son, but there's something inseparable from my life. A ventilator. Since childhood, I've been ill. While other kids played outside, I preferred reading and watching movies. Of course, I wanted to play outside, but my body just couldn't keep up. Don't you go out to play? Going outside tires me, so today I'll read the book I got recently. I see, but staying indoors all the time will make you weaker. Try to go out sometimes and play with others. Okay. Back then, my parents didn't suspect any illness, probably just thought I naturally had low stamina. But when school started and I fainted during a physical education class, they realized something was wrong. Initially thought to be heat stroke, hospital tests revealed a rare illness. I can still live normally now, but the doctor told me that gradually I will lose more and more of my physical abilities. I remember that very clearly. Am I sick? It seems so, but it's okay. The doctor will surely cure you, and you'll be able to play with everyone again. So, can you believe that, Sally? As a young child, I understood that my condition might worsen or might not be curable. My parents tried their best to encourage me, but I could sense their deep anxiety. I see. But nobody really knows what the future holds. I didn't take the situation too seriously, being optimistic about the future. However, as I grew older, even a little walk would leave me breathless. And I had to attend online classes at high school. Life became confined to my home and hospital visits, and I couldn't find joy in my life. How was your study today, Sally? It's getting more difficult, isn't it? Leave me alone. Don't just come into my room. I'm sorry. Do you need something? If not, please leave. I knew I was wrong to talk to my parents that way, especially since they always supported me. I was a high school student, and deep down, I understood that. I wondered why I lashed out at my parents like that. They hadn't done anything wrong. Despite understanding this deep down, I couldn't control my emotions and often felt self-loathing for my behavior. Looking around, everyone was putting on makeup, dressing up, and heading out shopping. When I saw people on social media enjoying their high school life, going for a trip during their breaks, it really hurt. Why couldn't I enjoy life the same way? In middle school, I didn't make many friends because I was different, and attending online classes at high school meant no new friends. Conversations were limited to my family. And I began to feel like I was trapped in a birdcage. Why is it just me? Why wasn't I born healthy? I once blurted out to my mom when I couldn't control my emotions. She apologized for not being able to give birth to a healthy child. Of course, my illness wasn't her fault. I regretted saying that to her, realizing that maybe my parents were suffering more than I was, but at the same time, I acutely felt the unfairness of the world. However, when I turned 20, I got a job at a major company through a disability program. I could earn my own money and found hobbies I could do from home. I was growing mentally and began to find joy in life. Then, before I knew it, I was 30. How have you been feeling recently? Are the medications helping to stabilize your condition? Thanks to the new prescription you gave me, I'm able to live much more comfortably. That's great to hear. On a visit to the hospital, where I went weekly, a new doctor arrived. He was older than me, with a very calm demeanor. He sincerely dealt with my illness, and since my only interaction with the opposite sex was at the hospital, it became a sort of sanctuary for me. As we got closer, he suggested that it would be good for my health to go out occasionally when I felt well. So, I boldly asked him out for a meal. I've been wanting to try the Italian restaurant right in front of the hospital. Let's go. Actually, you're my last patient for the morning. How about now? It was my first time having a meal with a man, and I was really nervous, but I had a great time. I had always been cooped up at home, had hobbies, but never experienced romance. I thought no one would want to date someone with my illness and that I'd live alone forever. So, feeling my heart flutter like that was exciting. I experienced a feeling of exhilaration and a quickening heartbeat like never before. While it was exciting, it was equally exhausting. After that day, we started going out for meals. He would compliment my looks and call me pure and wonderful, and I had feelings for him too. It didn't take long for us to become a couple. I want to support you forever. Will you marry me? When he looked into my eyes and said that, I felt it was my only chance at happiness in life. Of course, my illness was a factor. I couldn't go out much, and all my work was done from home. The most I could do was eat somewhere after a hospital visit. Staying overnight somewhere seemed impossible, and marrying me would bring various restrictions. He had been married before, so he knew more about married life than I did. In this situation, he chose me as his partner for remarriage. I couldn't have been happier, feeling it was destiny. I'm looking forward to our life together. Me too. And I'm not sure how he'll react, but I'll talk to my son today. Maybe we can start living together next month? Of course. I'm not in a hurry, and I want us to be a wonderful family. His challenge wasn't just my illness. He had a son from his previous marriage, a middle schooler. I knew adolescents could be sensitive, especially with his dad remarrying. And the fact that his stepmom couldn't go out much due to illness. Honestly, I wasn't confident about fitting in or being accepted by his son. But worrying wouldn't help, so I decided to see how things would go. A week later. Well, at his age, I don't think he'll talk much, but his room is separate, so it should be fine. We should plan to move in together next month. Are you sure this isn't too soon? He's in his rebellious phase. If he didn't like it, he would have said so. But he didn't show any signs of that. He's been without a mother since he was little, so I think he's been lonely. Please help me out. He was right. As a doctor, he was often busy. Night shifts were common, and being motherless must have been hard for his son. I didn't think I could replace his mother, nor did I intend to be presumptuous, but I wanted to alleviate his loneliness if I could. That's what I was thinking. So began our life together. Looking forward to living with you. Yeah. He wasn't very talkative, whether due to his age or not fully accepting me yet, I couldn't tell. Initially, he wouldn't even make eye contact or communicate, but gradually, he began to look at me and talk. As my husband's work got busier, the boy and I spent more time together. I'm going out to eat with friends, can I have some money? Is $60 enough? No way, that's not enough. After eating, we might go to bowling. I need at least $200. That's too much for just hanging out. Just because you never went out with friends doesn't mean you know everything. It costs a lot to have fun, and it's a mother's duty to provide. Being called a mother left me speechless. Looking back, I think it was almost like a kind of curse. I felt like I could never truly be his mother. But when he needed me, I wanted to be there for him. I believe that's what I was thinking. In retrospect, maybe a middle schooler didn't need $200 for going out. But I had my own earnings and savings, so I gave it to him. And I might stay at a friend's house, so don't tell Dad, okay? Staying over? Don't you have school tomorrow? Sure, but that's none of your business, right? I wondered if it was okay to let him be so free-spirited. My husband was quite strict, only giving a certain amount of money for outings. I knew I shouldn't be doing this, but I didn't want him to dislike me. Maybe he was starting to open up to me, and I feared if I was too strict, he might completely shut me out. So, I had these anxieties. All right, just be careful then. He ignored me and left, but I thought maybe giving him some freedom was better. I'm not his mom, and I didn't want to overstep and upset him. Maybe from his perspective, he was thinking, I don't want to hear it from you. But ignoring my husband's parenting approach hurt too. I knew raising a child wouldn't be easy, but I didn't expect this many problems. However, that night, I thought about it and realized I couldn't just stay silent about him. The next morning, I told my husband everything. I think it's partly because he's in his rebellious phase, but we can't just leave it like this. You're right, thanks for telling me. I expected a day would come when he wouldn't listen to me anymore. Well, some of it can't be helped, I guess. We can't spoil him, but being too strict isn't good either. I'll think about it. My husband seemed to be struggling with parenting, and I couldn't offer any good advice. I wanted to be helpful, but felt frustrated that I couldn't be more useful. Still, I continued to support him in my own way. He eventually graduated high school and, though not the brightest, went to college. My husband and I were happy that he was progressing, but there was a bigger problem. It was about my health. Are you okay? Yeah, the medication helps a lot, but I've been feeling quite short of breath. My condition had been worsening for about a month, and recently I couldn't even lie down without struggling to breathe. My husband said my illness was progressing rapidly and that I wouldn't be able to work anymore. My respiratory system was failing, and it seemed I'd need a ventilator in the future. My legs were getting weaker, so I needed a wheelchair whenever I went out. It had progressed to that extent. You can't be serious. Don't worry, I'll always be here to support you. You're not alone. His words helped me keep my spirits up, but as weeks passed, it became harder to live normally. I had managed to build a good family life. His son was growing up and moving on, and I thought my husband and I would live happily together. But then I became dependent on a wheelchair and ventilator, unable to do anything on my own. I didn't want to be a burden to my family. So, I hired a helper using my savings, trying not to be a burden. But then one day, can I have some money? For hanging out with friends? I'm going on a trip. I need about $4,000. That's a lot of money. So, you want me to be the odd one out, huh? I didn't mean that, but honestly, my medical expenses alone were a significant amount each month. Thankfully, my husband, being a doctor, wasn't financially struggling. However, I didn't want to be too much of a burden, so I was paying everything from my own savings. It wasn't easy when he demanded $4,000 right away for a trip with friends. I understand what you're saying, but that's a lot of money. So, you're just pretending to be a mom, but you don't really care about me, do you? That's not true, but... Well, I don't need your permission anyway. You must be keeping some cash around, right? He then started rummaging through the dresser in my bedroom. What are you doing? Wow, you've been stashing quite a bit. And you won't give me just $4,000? Pretending to be a mom, but you're useless. He took the cash I had saved and stuffed it into his pocket. Why did he do such a thing? There's a clear distinction between right and wrong actions. I thought he would understand that much. Yet, I was truly shocked and disappointed. I never expected him to go this far. Why are you doing this? There's a line between right and wrong, you know. What's the use of all this money to you? I can put it to better use. Stop it, it's not too late to put the money back. You're annoying. I only stuck around because you were good with money, but you're just a nuisance. Just disappear. I was shocked and disappointed. I never thought he would go this far. Suddenly, he unplugged my ventilator. What is he doing? Why don't you get help from your dearly beloved husband whom you married? Oh, but maybe you married him not because you loved him, but for his money. He left me there, and I started to panic. I can breathe without the ventilator. But it felt like I had sprinted a marathon. My husband was still sleeping after his night shift, and I couldn't make it to his room. I collapsed, struggling to breathe, desperately trying to keep conscious. About 30 minutes later, my husband luckily found me on his way back from the bathroom. Are you okay? What happened? Well, I was relieved to be saved, but more than that, I was terrified to have discovered the true nature of my husband's son. The thought of living with such a person was unbearable. I told my husband everything that happened, the threat to my life, and how his son smirked as he took my money and left. My husband was visibly angry, trembling slightly with clenched fists. I knew he was furious, but I felt grateful that he was on my side. I'm so sorry for what my foolish son did. It's not your fault, but I can't live with him anymore. Of course, I agree. But just kicking him out won't make him understand anything. I have a plan. A plan? While I was glad my husband was on my side, it seemed he wasn't planning to just kick him out. I wanted to cut ties immediately, wondering what my husband was thinking. But after hearing his plan, I strangely agreed. Kicking him out would just end our familial relationship without addressing the root of the problem. A week later, he returned from his trip. I'm back. What's that smell? Welcome back. I just got back from a business trip myself. Do you notice a rotten smell? What? A business trip? Weren't you at home? No, I expected Sally to contact me if anything happened. But nothing did. Why are you so panicked? At that moment, he turned pale and rushed to my bedroom. He probably never imagined this scenario. After my son left the house, my husband was indeed sleeping, but he was still at home. My son probably thought that if my ventilator's power was unplugged, my husband would immediately take care of it. He must have had some idea of what my husband would say upon his return. He really didn't think things through. But the situation my son found himself in upon returning was different from what he had imagined. My husband didn't know about the unplugged ventilator. The house smelled of decay. I imagine various speculations must have run through my son's head, but there was one likely possibility. Desperately trying to deny this possibility in his mind, he rushed to my bedroom. What? What are you doing here? I thought you might have gone to the police station. What's going on? And this smell? Maybe I left some meat thawing in the kitchen and forgot about it. It's summer, so it might have rotted. But you had the nerve to come back after unplugging my ventilator. If you had any conscience, you'd go to the police. But I guess you don't. When I stated this clearly, he fell silent. I had died after he unplugged my ventilator and that he had left me here, lifeless. He must have thought that. But this was a strategy my husband and I had devised, and he fell right into our trap. He must have been in a panic, thinking he had taken a life with his own hands. That's why he rushed to my bedroom, pale-faced and sweating, in a state of alarm. But it didn't happen because my husband was there to help. If my husband hadn't noticed, my life would have been in real danger. Do you realize what you've done? If things had gone as you thought, I would have been dead. Wait, did you trick me? I was really scared. Don't do this kind of thing. Don't joke. What you did is unforgivable. It's the worst thing a person can do. I just wanted to make her suffer a bit, but I didn't. It's your casual attitude that's the problem. She never troubled you, and yet You're no human, you scoundrel. My husband grabbed his shirt and yelled, and his son just looked down in silence. He probably had never been scolded like this before. He was surprised and maybe even scared. But he should have known what reaction to expect after such an act. I think you know this, but I'm cutting ties with you. You're on your own now. I'm not paying for your college anymore, and I don't care about your living expenses. Wait, don't say that. You're misunderstanding. I didn't do it on purpose. What are you talking about? It was just an accident. My foot got caught. There's no proof that I did it intentionally. I didn't expect him to make such a desperate excuse at the last minute. After being scolded so harshly by my husband, I thought he might have reflected on his actions. But as soon as he realized he was being disowned, now without financial support for college or living expenses, he might be thinking he can't live this way. He resorted to making excuses. He's truly done as a person. Not a hint of apology or remorse towards me. My husband yelled at him for a reason, but he seemed to not understand at all. However, my husband looked utterly disgusted with his response. Can I believe you're still not apologizing? Saying there's no proof? Your actions were all recorded on camera. Recorded? What do you mean? We installed monitoring cameras for any emergencies. I've seen all the footage, and it's all recorded, including your horrible words to her. He didn't know about the camera in my bedroom because he never cared to check. But that's not the issue. The problem is that he continued to lie to my husband until the very end. Why couldn't he just apologize honestly? Even if there had been no camera, admitting his actions and apologizing might have led to forgiveness from my husband. But instead, he chose to escape his guilt. With no more excuses and nowhere to run, he suddenly began to apologize. I didn't want to see such a performance, but I remained silent. I'm really sorry. I'll apologize as many times as needed and reflect on my actions. Please forgive me. Choose now. Leave immediately or get reported to the police. With the camera footage, you know how serious this could be, right? Wait, are you really going to turn your own son over to the police? What you did doesn't deserve to be called son. A person who treats others like tools has no rights. You're no longer my son. When my husband spoke those words, he collapsed to his knees and began to cry. After always exploiting me and smirking whenever he received money, he had lost all his smugness. He might be regretting and reflecting on his actions now. Or maybe he's just regretting, not truly reflecting. But seeing him so miserable doesn't change my mind. I won't forgive him. Indeed, my illness might have been a burden. But there's a line between what's acceptable and what's not. A person who can't make such a distinction doesn't need a conscience. You are not to come near this house again, and don't contact us ever. If you can abide by these two conditions, we won't do anything more. So, you're telling me to drop out of college? I have no place to live and no money. That's not my concern. It's your choice. Just know, I won't provide any financial support going forward. And you must return the money you took without permission. I can't pay back what I've already spent. I don't have a job or a way to live. Can't pay because you don't have a job? That kind of excuse won't fly. Keep making ridiculous statements, and I'll consider involving the police. My husband said this, and the son had nothing to reply. It felt like I was leveraging a weakness, but I had to say this to get a sincere response from him. That very day, we packed his bags and kicked him out of the house. I don't know what he's going to do now, but it's all the result of the seeds he sowed himself. If he truly reflects on his actions, he might have a good life waiting for him. But if he keeps harboring resentment and complaining, he's bound to walk the same troubled path. I'm sorry for causing trouble until the very end, but thank you for standing by me. I promised when we married, no matter what, I'd stay by your side and keep supporting you. Thank you, really. His words warmed my heart a bit. It's not like I did anything, but it ended up severing the parent-child bond. I felt a bit sorry for him, but I'm glad my husband stood his ground. I can't live without my husband's help. So, I'll do anything I can for him in return. Life is never something you can do alone, you always need someone's help at some point. It makes me wonder if there's someone around to lend a hand when needed. If nobody is willing to help, that says a lot about a person's worth. I plan to continue living happily, supporting each other with my husband. I was told by my son, Henry, that his spouse, Michelle, cheated on him and even had a child with another man. I can't forgive her for cheating and tricking me like this. I'm gonna get a divorce. A month after he declared this, I got a call. Hi, Susie, it's been a while. I'm getting discharged from the hospital tomorrow and will be coming over. Michelle's innocent voice came through the phone. I couldn't understand what she was talking about. Huh? Aren't you and Henry divorced? What? Divorced? Me and Henry? Oh, come on, Susie, stop joking around. That's not true. From her words, it didn't seem like Michelle was lying. But of course, I couldn't just take her word for it. Suspicious, I decided to confront Henry, who was relaxing at home. Henry, I just got a call from Michelle, and what she's saying is completely different from what you told me. Upon hearing this, Henry started to tremble and clammed up. My husband, Ken, who was watching the situation, thought it was odd and grabbed his baseball bat, slamming it down on the table. Thinking he was about to get hit, Henry finally started talking. Wait, please. Don't hit me. I'll tell you everything, I promise. I'm Susie. My husband Ken is a retired police officer, and now it's just the two of us living together. Our son, Henry, lives independently and works as a freelancer using social media. I'm not too familiar with that field, but it seems he makes a living through his illustrations. He's quite well reputed and has even been interviewed on TV. Ken, having been a cop, initially didn't understand Henry's line of work. But now, he seems to have come around to accepting it. Since retiring, Ken has mellowed out and helps around the house, something he never had time for before. We live in a house with a garden, and I was looking forward to gardening with Ken. Then, on a sunny day, as we were tending to the garden, Henry suddenly showed up. Ken and I stopped our work in surprise. "Henry, this is unexpected." Henry was grinning. "I just heard you guys having fun and wanted to check it out." "What's with that grin? Got a problem?" Ken seemed a bit embarrassed. He scowled and silently resumed weeding. "Don't be like that. So, what brings you here?" "Well, I have some important news." Suddenly, Henry's expression turned serious, making me brace myself for what was to come. "Well, it's not ideal to talk while standing, so please have a seat," I suggested. Henry and I sat side by side on a small bench in the garden. Ken seemed concerned but chose not to join in the conversation, busily continuing to pull weeds. "I'm thinking of getting married." "Really? Congratulations!" I was genuinely happy for Henry's marriage. Ken, clearly surprised, stood up to look at us. "So, who is she?" Henry grinned again. "Her name's Michelle. And she's actually outside our house right now." "What? Huh?" Ken and I exclaimed in unison. This was too sudden, and I wasn't prepared at all. "Hold on. I can't meet her without even putting on makeup." "It's fine. Being natural is best. Michelle is a good person, no worries. I'll go call her." Watching Henry go to call Michelle, I sighed. Looking at Ken, he seemed just as incredulous, shaking his head at me. "Well, that's just like them. Always like this. What a predicament. Well, it can't be helped. It'd leave a bad impression to send her away after bringing her here." Soon, Michelle arrived, led by Henry. Under the afternoon sun, she looked radiant. Her clothes and mannerisms were charming, and she seemed well-raised. I felt embarrassed about my own attire, impressed as I was by Michelle. "Mom, Dad, let me introduce you. This is Michelle." "Nice to meet you. I'm Michelle, Henry's girlfriend." "Thank you for coming here. Normally, we should have greeted you properly inside, not out here in the garden." "Oh, that's all right. What a lovely garden you have. So many beautiful flowers. May I help out sometime?" Michelle's eyes sparkled. Her childlike, innocent smile made me happy too. Ken also looked pleased. "Well, Henry's really lucky to have you. He might not be perfect, but please take good care of him. I also ask you to take care of him. But Henry, next time, make sure to tell us in advance." I chided. Henry sheepishly scratched the back of his head. Actually, Michelle was only free today, and she thought it'd make things tense if we called ahead. He explained. Michelle shot Henry a look of mild disapproval. "Well, that's all right. Let's go inside for some coffee." "Sorry, we have another appointment after this. We'll let you know once we set a date for the wedding." With that, the two of them left us standing in the garden. It all happened so fast, it felt like a daydream. "What just happened?" "It's fine. Times are different from when we were young. They're both responsible adults, so it'll be all right." "I guess so." Despite my worries, Henry and Michelle got married without a hitch. They seemed to be doing well even after their marriage. Living not too far from us, Michelle would come to help us out whenever she had time. We'd chat and garden together, and she'd ask to learn my recipes. Ken and I grew quite fond of her, always looking out for her. There didn't seem to be any mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues, and our relationship was very good. However, Michelle seemed tired. Dark circles under her eyes and slightly hollowed cheeks. One day, while eating snacks, I decided to ask her. "Michelle, you seem tired lately. I'm worried. I've been busy with work. Michelle was hiding something. I could feel it. Ken sensed it too and spoke gently. Michelle, don't hesitate to talk to us. We're family. It's only right to share concerns. Michelle remained silent for a while, munching on her snacks. Then, tears started to fall from her big eyes. Actually, Henry hardly helps with any housework. I understand we're both busy with work, but it's really tough when he doesn't do anything. With that, she bowed her head, her shoulders shaking. She was too sincere to complain about Henry to us, probably bottling it all up. I hugged her gently and whispered, I'm glad you spoke up. We'll talk to Henry, don't worry. We're on your side, Michelle. Thank you. I immediately scolded Henry over the phone. He fumbled for words, making excuses about being busy at work. Cut it out. Being busy is no excuse. Marriage is about supporting each other. I understand. Henry seemed to take it to heart, and it looked like Michelle's burden was lightened. Seeing her cheerful again, I felt relieved. She's such a good person, Henry should be working hard to make her happy. A few years later, in the spring, Michelle told us she was pregnant. My husband and I were thrilled at the prospect of seeing our first grandchild, but things didn't go smoothly. Michelle suddenly fell ill and, after being examined at the hospital, was found to be in a critical condition. She was diagnosed with preterm labor and had to be hospitalized. We prayed desperately for a safe delivery. Thankfully, our prayers were answered and Michelle gave birth safely. She had no postpartum issues, but to be cautious, she stayed in the hospital for a while and planned to spend some time at our house after being discharged. I was eager to see my grandchild, but I knew Michelle's health wasn't fully recovered. About a month after, we had only made congratulatory phone calls. On a rainy day when we weren't gardening, Ken and I were watching TV. Suddenly, Henry came to our house and burst into the living room, crying out loud, Dad, Mom, I can't stay with Michelle anymore. We were both so shocked we couldn't say anything. What do you mean? You just had a child. Why would you say that? Exactly. Start explaining. Sniffling, Henry pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket and placed it on the table. Michelle's been acting weird for a while. She said she was visiting my parents, but she wasn't really coming here. She's been cheating. Ken and I exchanged looks of disbelief. We knew she visited us often, so Henry's words seemed hard to believe. I know I've done wrong too, but after Mom scolded me, I seriously reflected on my actions. And yet, Michelle went and had a child. Wait, so the child Michelle gave birth to? Henry slammed his hand on the paper on the table. It's not mine. The DNA test showed no parental relation. This is the report. Can you believe it? She tricked me, acting all innocent. Henry ranted, his anger seemingly uncontainable. Rainwater from his clothes splattered on the table and floor. I picked up the report and tried to read it, but the ink had blurred due to the rain. The report clearly stated there was no parental relation. Ken also looked at the report in disbelief. I didn't want to believe that Michelle cheated and tricked him. We had built such a good relationship with her, and I couldn't imagine her doing such a thing behind that demeanor. Ken felt the same and was visibly confused. Can we trust this report? Shouldn't we investigate more? I already confronted her. Her attitude changed completely. She insulted me, calling me a convenient ATM. I can't believe that. It's true. Not just Michelle, her family blames me too. That's why freelancing is no good, they say. I've reached my limit, that's why I came here. So, what do you want to do? I'm cutting ties with Michelle. I don't want anything to do with her family either. You mean divorce? Yes. I have all the evidence. I'm not at fault. Henry seemed to have made up his mind. The situation had progressed so far, there wasn't much we could do, but I wished I could talk to Michelle one more time. All right, we'll be prepared for that. Thanks, Mom. It means a lot. But don't contact Michelle or her family. I'll handle everything. If that's what you've decided, do as you wish. But please, no trouble with the police. I know. I'll be going now. Henry picked up the report, stuffed it in his pocket, and left quickly. After that, we went through some gloomy days. There would be no more Michelle helping in the garden, no more requests to teach her cooking, no seeing our grandchild. It was a saddening thought. I thought we were starting a more joyous chapter in our lives, but this felt lonely. Ken didn't say it, but he seemed lonely too, quietly weeding the garden. Then, one day, about a month into this somber routine, we got a phone call. Hello, this is Susie. Oh, hi Susie. It's been a while. I'm feeling much better and will be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. I'll be heading your way with the baby, so please be ready. Michelle's innocent voice came through. I couldn't understand what she was talking about. Huh? Aren't you and Henry divorced? What? Divorced? Me and Henry? Oh, come on, Susie, stop joking. That's not possible. I was utterly confused and explained to Michelle what Henry had said. At first, Michelle was incredulous, but she got seriously angry when I mentioned the trickery accusation. That's just ridiculous. Henry was the one who restricted me, saying not to meet other men. I followed that rule, and now he accuses me of cheating? Unforgivable. From her words, it didn't seem like Michelle was lying. But of course, I couldn't just take her word for it. Okay, I understand. Henry is actually at home now. I'll talk to him. Please do. Right after I hung up the phone, Ken came back from the garden. What's going on? A little issue. Is Henry in his room? I think so. I heard some talking. I immediately entered Henry's room. He was on a call on his computer, but quickly shut the screen off as I walked in. What the? At least knock before you enter. Sorry. I made some coffee. Wanna have some? Henry seemed to sense something was off, but followed me to the living room without protest. However, there was no coffee there. Hey, there's nothing here. Just sit down. I sat Henry on the sofa and explained my phone conversation with Michelle. Henry started shaking as he listened. He refused to respond to any further questions. Ken, sensing something was off, picked up a baseball bat and slammed it on the table. Henry! Speak up. We can't understand if you stay silent. Deny it if it's not true. Henry remained silent, so Ken raised the bat as if to hit him. Thinking he was going to be hit, Henry finally spoke. Wait! Don't hit me! I'll tell you everything. Please! Hearing this, Ken lowered the bat. All right, speak up. Henry finally confessed. Michelle and I haven't been getting along. I got tempted and cheated with another woman. So, you're the one in the wrong. I'm not to blame. Michelle ignored me, always paying more attention to you and Mom. I hated that. Ken was furious with Henry's excuses. That's ridiculous. You're the one who cheated. What happened to the other woman? Well, she got pregnant. But it's not like I wanted to get her pregnant. It just happened naturally. Ken, seeing no remorse in Henry, hit him with the bat. You fool! Do you understand what it means to have a child? What have you learned in your life? Henry, crying from the hit, lashed out at Ken. Shut up. You're also to blame. Always acting so high and mighty. Always criticizing everything I do. I'm fed up. So you deceived us because you didn't want to be scolded? Yes. I planned the pregnancy dates so it wouldn't seem odd. If things had gone well, I could have pinned it all on Michelle and left her. Henry, defiant, revealed all his actions. Go ahead, hit me. I'll report it to the police. I'll even post it online. Former cop abuses son. It'll make a good story. You can't be serious. But it's true. That's how things work now. You and Mom are just outdated. Please just stop interfering in my life. Threatened with police action, Ken was unable to do anything. Even so, you're the one who lied. How are you going to explain that? Henry no longer listened to me. Mom, can you just be quiet? If you make too much noise, I'll expose it all online. But I wasn't afraid, no matter what he said. It was clear that what Henry did was unforgivable, regardless of the era. And it was our duty as parents to teach him that. Well, then. If that's how it is. That's right. Keep quiet and I might even share some of my earnings with you. I'm making good money, you know. Henry grinned, thinking he could buy our silence with money. But that didn't matter to us anymore. Unfortunately, we're satisfied with our lives. Write whatever you want on the internet. I'm going to tell Michelle and her parents. At that, Henry suddenly panicked. He must have realized he had said too much in the heat of the moment. Wait! You can't do that! If her parents find out, it'll be a huge problem. You can't tell them. Ken, fed up, grasped the bat again. Do you really think you can get away with this? It's your fault for concocting such a poor plan. Just accept it. No! I'll write everything online. I'll say it's abuse. Try it if you dare. While Ken was dealing with Henry, I called Michelle and told her everything Henry had said. I told Michelle everything Henry had blurted out. I can't believe it. I've decided. I'm sorry to say this to you, Susie, but I'm going to divorce Henry. I'm the one who should apologize. I'm really sorry. I'll also explain everything to your parents. Then, I called Michelle's parents and told them everything that had happened. They were furious and wanted to have a meeting at my house the next day, so I agreed. When I told Ken, he took away Henry's computer and phone to prevent him from escaping. We watched him all night to make sure he didn't do anything strange. Henry tried to escape several times, but it was futile in front of Ken, a former police officer. The next morning, Michelle and her parents arrived. Michelle's mother agreed to take care of the baby, so they went to another room. Then the discussion began. I'm completely shocked. Never thought he could be such a person. I'm really sorry. We spoiled him too much since he's our only son. Anyway, Henry, explain yourself. Michelle demanded, her face showing an anger I had never seen before. Henry, too scared to meet her gaze, mumbled something inaudibly. Speak up. I can't hear you. Michelle scolded. Henry then spoke louder, explaining everything. When he got to the part about the false accusation of cuckolding, Michelle's father and she both erupted in anger. How dare you accuse our daughter of such a thing? How far will you go to disgrace her? It's unbelievable. Susie and Ken are such good people, what a shame. Faced with everyone's anger, Henry frantically ruffled his hair, unable to lie or make excuses anymore. After all this, I can't continue our marriage. I'm divorcing you. Please sign the divorce papers right now. You'll also have to pay alimony, Michelle declared, placing the divorce papers on the table. Henry shook his head, refusing to sign. Henry, you think you can say no at this point? You brought this on yourself. Sign it, Ken yelled. Unable to resist, Henry signed under our watchful eyes. And sign this too, Michelle said, handing over a document for a generous alimony and child support. Henry reluctantly signed, but then his attitude changed completely. Don't get too happy just because I signed some papers. What are you saying now? Listen up. I'm a famous person. My work sells for a lot. I have value. If you had just obeyed me, you could have enjoyed the benefits too. Henry's outburst was unstoppable. You'll regret cutting ties with me. You'll come crawling back when you're poor and need money. I'll marry my mistress. I don't care about you anymore. With that, Henry grabbed his phone and computer and left our house. An awkward silence filled the room. I'm so sorry. How could he turn out like this? I couldn't help but cry. Even though Michelle and her parents were the real victims. But honestly, divorcing Henry is the right decision. Michelle is a wonderful person, she'll find someone better. It's not about that. But I'm really glad I met you. If it's okay with you, I'd like to maintain the same relationship as before. Michelle's kindness made me feel even more guilty. But then, her father asked us a favor. Actually, we have a request. Our place is far, and Michelle isn't fully recovered. She also has work. Could you please help take care of her and the baby? We were more than willing. Of course, don't hesitate to ask us for anything. We'll treat Michelle like our own daughter. Everyone laughed, relieving the tension. Michelle's mother and the baby came into the living room. We spent time talking about the baby and enjoying their company. If only Henry realized that happiness isn't about money. He's such a fool. Actually, we were the ones who had been helping him get work. I didn't know that. Yes, but we'll stop that now. He won't be able to work as he used to. Michelle's father's words turned out to be true. Without their help, Henry's work opportunities plummeted. But he was too proud to ask us for help. He went on to marry his mistress and had a grand wedding. However, the divorce and his dealings got leaked online, and he faced a huge backlash. When I saw it on the news, I asked Henry if he was okay. He blamed us for the leak and cut ties with us. It didn't end there. It turned out the child of his mistress wasn't his. It was probably thought that sticking with Henry, who earned a lot of money, would be safe. Ironically, he ended up being cuckolded. Henry's work, once highly regarded, was no longer valued, and his contracts with various companies were terminated one after the other, leaving him with a hefty amount of penalties to pay. Moreover, his careless handling of tax matters led to further reprimands, and he ended up with a massive debt. I wanted to help Henry multiple times, but Ken stopped me. I understand how you feel, but this is his trial. He needs to overcome this, or he'll just repeat the same mistakes. It was clear, though, that Ken was worried about Henry. With nowhere else to turn, Henry would come to our house, claiming his right as the grandfather of the child. However, I made the tough decision not to let him in. He then resorted to shouting outside our house, "Michelle, I was wrong. Let's make up. Let me take care of the child as his father." He was so persistent that Ken eventually had to call the police to drive him away. Thinking of the worst-case scenario, Michelle quit her job and went back to her parents' house with the baby. Henry gave up and returned to his mistress, who appeared to be quite free-spirited. But he endured, unable to make matters worse in public. In addition to that, he was living in poverty due to his debts. When Michelle learned that Henry wasn't coming around anymore, she started visiting us with the baby, enjoying gardening and cooking together. We grew even closer to Michelle's parents and now often go on trips together. We're looking forward to visiting a tourist spot on our next holiday. Despite everything that's happened, we're living very happily now.